If you are trying to stay valuable in 2026 job market, the question is no longer whether artificial intelligence matters. It does. The real question is what skills make a person more valuable when more of the work is being delegated to systems, agents, and hybrid human machine workflows. Because something measurable has changed. It is not hype anymore. This is showing up in wage data, hiring data, and employer expectations. PwC's Global AI Jobs Barometer, based on nearly a billion job ads across 6 continents, found that workers with artificial intelligence skills earn an average wage premium of 56% compared with workers in the same occupation without those skills. The same report found that skills sought by employers are changing 66% faster in jobs most exposed to artificial intelligence than in jobs least exposed to it. Microsoft's 2025 Work Trend Index says agents are joining teams as digital colleagues, taking on specific tasks at human direction. And the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs Report 2025 says employers expect 39% of workers' core skills to change by 2030. Put those three facts together, and the direction is obvious. The labor market is moving into what I would call the intent era, an era where value increasingly goes to people who can define work clearly, structure it properly, evaluate outputs rigorously, and manage systems that do not think like humans. So in this video, I want to talk through 8 skills that matter most in that shift. No vague future of work cliches, actual skills that sit closest to what is changing. Let's start with the first one, intent definition. If agents are taking on specific tasks at human direction, then instruction quality becomes economically important. That sounds simple, but most people are still bad at it. They give vague instructions, they leave out constraints, they fail to specify what success looks like, they assume that systems will infer intent. It will not. In an agent driven environment, intent definition means being able to clearly specify the task, the goal, the boundaries, the format, the risks, and the acceptable level of autonomy. What exactly should be done? What should never be done? What output is required? What standards must be met before the result is usable? The people who do this well will be far more effective than people who just know how to use AI, because vague users get vague outcomes. Precise operators get leverage. The second skill is evaluation design. Once output becomes easier to generate, the bottleneck shifts. The bottleneck is no longer production, it's judgment. To tell whether the output is correct, can you tell whether it is complete, reliable, useful, compliant, or dangerously wrong in subtle ways? That requires evaluation design. In practical terms, that means setting standards in advance, defining what good looks like, checking outputs against those standards, and knowing where human review is still necessary. A lot of people talk as if artificial intelligence reduces the need for expertise. In reality, in many environments, it increases the need for structured expertise, because when generation gets cheap, discernment becomes more valuable. The third skill is workflow orchestration. Microsoft's research points toward a workplace moving from artificial intelligence as assistant to agents taking on specific tasks and eventually broader business processes with humans checking in as needed. That means the real work is not just looking for output, it is designing the system of work. What happens first? What depends on what? Where are the handoffs? Where are the approval gates? What gets escalated and to whom? What should run automatically and what should stop for review? This is workflow orchestration. And this matters because most business work does not fail at the level of one isolated task. It fails at the level of bad handoffs, missing context, unclear responsibilities, and no escalation logic. So, as agent use arises, orchestration becomes a core professional skill. The fourth skill is data and context discipline. This one is badly underestimated. Artificial intelligence systems are highly sensitive to input quality, context quality, and reliability of the information they are given. If the context is weak, stale, incomplete, or contradictory, the output degrades. If the data source is unreliable, the system can produce polished nonsense with full confidence. PwC's data shows that skills are changing faster in AI exposed jobs. That means more roles will depend on people who can manage context properly, not just gather information, but structure it, filter it, verify it, and supply it in a usable form. In other words, the future does not just reward people who can ask for answers, it rewards people who know what information the systems should and should not rely on. The fifth skill is human judgment in hybrid teams. This is where a lot of people become confused. That as agents become more capable, human judgment matters less. That is backwards. In hybrid teams, human judgment becomes the control function. Humans decide what gets delegated. Humans decide what gets reviewed. Humans decide what needs approval. Humans decide when the system is producing something usable and when it is drifting into error. The question is not whether the machine can do work. The question is whether the human knows how to govern that work. That means understanding where automation is helpful, where it is risky, and where a human must remain directly accountable. The strongest people in this environment will not be those who try to do everything themselves. They will be the ones who know exactly where human judgment adds the most value. The sixth skill is governance and risk awareness. This is not optional. As artificial intelligence moves deeper into real workflows, legal, operational, and ethical constraints become part of everyday execution. The European Union's Artificial Intelligence Act is one example. The European Commission has already made clear some practices are prohibited, including certain forms of emotion recognition in workplaces and educational institutions. That matters because organizations cannot treat artificial intelligence as a toy if it touches hiring, performance monitoring, finance, compliance, or regulated decisions. Who work effectively in this environment need some baseline understanding of boundaries, logging, oversight, permitted use, prohibited use, and escalation. Not because everyone has to become a lawyer, because reckless deployment is becoming professionally expensive. The era of casual experimentation without accountability is ending. The seventh skill is communication quality. This skill sounds soft. It's not soft, it's operational. When work moves across humans and software agents, execution depends heavily on how clearly tasks are defined, how well handoffs are written, how accurately summaries are produced, and how precisely exceptions are communicated. Weak communication creates failure, not abstract failure, real failure. Constraints, bad assumptions, rework, approval delays, faulty execution. In a hybrid environment, communication is not just about persuasion or presentation. It becomes part of system performance. The professional edge goes to people who can communicate instructions clearly, summarize accurately, capture decisions cleanly, and reduce ambiguity at every stage of execution. The eighth skill is reskilling speed. This may be the least glamorous skill on the list, but it may be the most important because the issue is not whether change is coming. The issue is whether you can adapt quickly enough to stay valuable as the work changes. The winners in the 2026 labor market will not be the people who cling to one tool stack, a workflow, or one identity built around an old mode of work. They will be the people who can test new systems, reject noise quickly, absorb what actually works, and adjust without drama. That is what adaptability means in this market. Not vague openness to change, actual reskilling speed. The speed at which you can update how you work without collapsing your standards. If we step back, the pattern is clear. The 2026 artificial intelligence job market is being shaped by three measurable realities. Artificial intelligence skills already command wage premium, faster in AI exposed jobs, an employer expect major skill disruption through 2030. At the same time, Microsoft's human agent team model points toward a workplace where people increasingly direct, supervise, evaluate, and govern work performed across both humans and software agents. That is why these eight skills matter. Let's recap. They are intent definition, evaluation design, workflow orchestration, data and context discipline, human judgment in hybrid teams, governance and risk awareness, communication quality, and reskilling speed. This is not a list of trendy buzzwords. It's a practical map of where labor market value is shifting. If you are a job seeker, these are the skills to build. If you are a manager, these are the skills to hire for. And if you are an executive, these are the capabilities your organization needs if you want artificial intelligence adoption to create real leverage rather than expensive confusion. If this framework helped clarify what is actually changing in the market, subscribe to the channel and in the comments tell me which of these eight skills you think employers are still underestimating. Thank you.